homeward bound. As the POWs fly to America, Saddam's money man lands in jail. Killer virus. In Hong Kong, the deadliest day for SARS.
This virus is probably here with us to stay.
And the beginning of an economic hit here as fear spreads through Chinese communities. In depth, arrested. Scott Peterson with a new look, in custody for the death of his pregnant wife, Lacey. And new boots. A company of Marine recruits face their future and their families.
It's been almost a goal to get out of here, to go out and be part of the Brotherhood.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with John Seigenthaler.
Good evening, everyone. 7 Americans, former prisoners of war in Iraq, are headed home to their loved ones tonight, who are ready to celebrate. The 5 soldiers and 2 helicopter pilots were captured more than a month ago as U.S. troops advanced on Baghdad. Now, after receiving medical treatment in Germany, officials say the 7 are in good condition. We begin our coverage tonight with NBC's Donna Friesen.
Free and finally flying home. From her stretcher, Army Specialist Shoshana Johnson, recovering from gunshot wounds to both ankles, sending a signal to her loved ones. Her fellow former captives thanking ground staff before bounding on board. All are said to be in good spirits, their prognosis excellent. While a small crowd looked on, a moment to snap some photos, reminders of the place they spent some of their first days of freedom. Just 1 week ago, they were still in Iraqi hands, fearing they'd be killed. Then on Sunday, overwhelming relief as Marines rescued them from a village near Tikrit. Among those who'll be there to welcome them home is David Williams, whose son David was taken prisoner.
The excitement just started really building, knowing that in just a few short hours I'll be able to hug my son.
God bless America.
Jane Riley plans to do the same to her son, James, and after all his trauma, take one day at a time.
Just treat him like normal. Not let him in the kitchen.
Back in Germany, one more show of national pride as their plane taxied for its takeoff to Texas. Flying time to the United States is roughly 13 hours. First stop is Fort Bliss, Texas, to drop off the 5 members of the 507th Maintenance Company, then on to Fort Hood, Texas, to drop off the 2 Apache helicopter pilots. At both places, family and friends will be waiting for them. Donna Friesen, NBC News, on Ramstein Air Base, Germany.
U.S. forces captured another key member of Saddam Hussein's former regime in Baghdad today. The finance minister, Hikmat Ibrahim al-Asawi, was number 45 on the list of most wanted Iraqis. While the U.S. military searches for those who helped Saddam Hussein run Iraq, the focus is also on rebuilding Baghdad and the rest of the country. And today, in the midst of chaos, some Iraqis tried to go back to work. NBC's Jim Maseda reports from Baghdad.
10 days after the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime, Baghdad's city services are just beginning to function. Some stores and schools have reopened, but there's chaos at the few gas stations that are again pumping fuel. Traffic cops in small numbers are back, so are fire trucks, but fighting fires with more zeal than effect. These firemen had to give up when the water ran out. Some of our trucks have been stolen, says Ali. It's made it hard to get back to work. The only real law and order here provided by U.S. forces. Today, with combat effectively over, U.S. Army units took over from the battle-hardened Marines.
We hope to help the Iraqi people get together a government and establish a way of life that everybody can live in peace.
The Army, by nature, is more inclined to take on a peacekeeping role, more likely now to engage looters and thieves than Iraqi soldiers. These U.S. Army soldiers say they're trained for combat, but this looks a lot more like policing. We're in downtown Baghdad, and these soldiers have just replaced a contingent of U.S. Marines. What they're doing is protecting the Baghdad Central Bank, which is just beyond their armor. Inside that bank, a reported $1 billion in gold bullion. And U.S. authorities may soon be able to trace more of Saddam's wealth. Today, his former finance minister, Hikmat al-Asawi, one of 55 on the Pentagon's most wanted list, was turned over to U.S. Marines by Iraqi police. So far, 6 key Iraqi figures have either been captured or surrendered in recent days as the dragnet tightens. But American military presence in Iraq is meeting increased resistance. On Friday, protesters in the Shiite town of Najaf called on U.S. troops to go home. And a street protest in Baghdad drew more than 1,500 anti-U.S. demonstrators, prompting some U.S. military sources to warn that they must bring change in Iraq quickly before their welcome runs out. Jim Macedo, NBC News, Baghdad.
And this program note, tomorrow on Meet the Press, post-war Iraq and the American policy on Syria, Iran, and North Korea. Tim Russerd's guests are Senator Richard Lugar and former CIA Director James Woolsey. There was more violence today between Palestinians and Israelis, but there is new hope, and there are new signs that the time could be right for both sides to venture down a new road to peace. NBC's Keith Miller reports from Tel Aviv.
It doesn't look like they want peace. Israeli troops and Palestinians exchanged gunfire today in the West Bank town of Nablus. A news photographer was killed by Israeli soldiers and more than a dozen people wounded. But this image doesn't reflect the mood of a majority of people on both sides. In a recent poll, 70% of Palestinians and 67% of Israelis believe peace talks will resume once a new Palestinian government is in place.
Many people are fed up with the conflict and want peace.
And the key to peace talks rests with this man, Prime Minister-designate Mahmoud Abbas. He and his new cabinet could take office in a matter of days. It will be the signal to launch the U.S.-sponsored Roadmap to Peace. Backed up by the Europeans, Russia, and the United Nations, the roadmap is a comprehensive peace plan. The final destination, an independent democratic Palestinian state by the year 2005. Nobody on the West Bank has seen the roadmap. It's a 7-page document full of target dates, timelines, and benchmarks. But any guide out of the violence is welcomed here.
Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants peace.
The Palestinians accept the roadmap because the general parameters gets us in a re-engagement.
The American victory in Iraq has given the push for peace here new momentum. The Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon says he's ready to act right away. Remove tanks and troops from some Palestinian cities. Release some of the 5,000 Palestinians now being held in prison. And Sharon says he's prepared to make the painful decision to evacuate some Israeli settlements in the West Bank and Gaza.
He really wants to bring some end to this violence between the Palestinians and Israelis.
The time just may be right. Both sides appear to be exhausted by the fighting and no longer willing to pay the price in casualties. Keith Miller, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
In Hong Kong, 12 more people died from SARS today, the biggest one-day death toll from the illness so far. And it comes just as the government there was suggesting that it was beginning to get the outbreak under control. NBC's Ned Colt is in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong officials today pitching in to clean up the city that is reeling from 12 more SARS deaths. Thousands spent the day scrubbing streets to underscore the importance of cleanliness in controlling the deadly disease. Hong Kong has to do something. SARS has now killed 81 people here, the most anywhere.
Just look at me. I recovered from this illness, even though I've been sick for quite some time.
Raymond Wong is one of the fortunate ones. A month ago, the doctor was flat on his back in an isolation ward, unable to breathe on his own. One of Hong Kong's first SARS patients.
I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything, just lying in bed.
Now he's one of more than 350 patients who've recovered and gone home. But they are a minority. Close to 1,000 are still hospitalized here. More get infected every day. What's most worrying about this mystery virus is all the unknowns. What its source is, how it's transmitted, and the best way to treat it. Experts here and around the world are struggling to answer those questions. The most likely source of SARS, a virus in southern China that likely leaped from animals, possibly chickens or pigs, to humans late last year. It then spread rapidly by commercial jetliner to at least 25 countries. SARS is now so widespread in Asia that health officials say at this point it's here to stay.
It is not very likely that in that part of the world that this infection can be stamped out. And given that fact, it seems that this virus is probably here with us to stay.
One reason why scientists are working so hard to discover more about SARS, anything that could lead to a vaccine. Ned Colt, NBC News, Hong Kong.
In this country, fear of SARS is spreading faster than the illness. Even though there have been no deaths so far in this country, SARS is still taking its toll on some Asian American communities. NBC's Don Lemon reports.
On the narrow streets of New York City's Chinatown today, it appears to be business as usual. But beneath the surface, there's a strong undercurrent of anxiety about SARS.
That's what really worries me, the fact that it might be much more widespread than we can actually ever imagine.
Just have to be more careful.
At the Chinese-language Mingpao News, SARS has dominated the headlines for weeks. Reporter Ting Yi Shu sees how the fear of SARS is changing Chinatown.
Normally you see Chinatown, you have a lot of people packed onto the street, and lately it has been really dead, not many people.
With both tourists and locals staying away, restaurant owner Tony T says the impact is worse than 9/11.
It says it dropped 50%. Everybody don't come to Chinatown.
At this hair salon, Johnny Lee points to his appointment book. Just a few months ago, before the outbreak, it was full. Now, see, empty. And anxiety is especially strong about close personal contact. Lee keeps face masks on hand in case customers want his employees to wear one.
Everybody try to protect himself. Not when I know you come from China or come from Asia, hey, when to come back?
What's worse, community leaders say the fear is heightened by bogus rumors, like the one that claims SARS killed this restaurant owner. He was never even sick.
The rumor caused way more damage than the actual disease.
Similar rumors are impacting businesses in other Asian communities nationwide. There were claims of contamination at this produce store in California, refuted by local officials. The mayors of Boston, New York, and Philadelphia have all made high-profile visits to Chinese restaurants, having lunch and calming concern. Health officials say the fear of SARS far outweighs the risk of contracting the disease. Here in the United States, no one has died from SARS, and very few have even been infected. So far, there is no known cure, putting already worried neighborhoods even more on edge. Don Lemon, NBC News, New York.
When we come back, an arrest in the Laci Peterson murder case. Her husband, Scott, is now behind bars, and prosecutors are deciding whether to seek the death penalty. That story coming up in depth. And later, graduation day at boot camp for the nation's newest Marines. NBC News in depth tonight, the tragic murder of Laci Peterson and her unborn son. With Laci's husband, Scott, under arrest for the killings, authorities are now turning their attention toward his possible motive, while the Petersons' neighbors in Modesto, California, try to make sense of the murders. NBC's James Satori is in Modesto tonight.
Scott Peterson arrived in custody at the county jail in Modesto last night, a changed man, no longer appearing as a distraught husband, but now a murder suspect with bleached hair and a beard. Heather and Mike Richardson, who've known Scott and Laci for more than 8 years, say he began acting suspiciously in January after a Fresno woman revealed she'd been having an affair with Peterson before Laci's disappearance.
It's hard to say. We know that he hasn't been truthful with us, so it's hard to pretty much believe anything he says at this point.
Others were also struck by his curious behavior. A family friend coordinating the volunteer search for Laci told Dateline's Keith Morrison that Scott Peterson approached her about selling his home.
And I said, this is not the time nor place, Scott. We can talk about that later.
Police arrested Peterson in San Diego yesterday morning, pulling over his vehicle in a golf course parking lot. NBC News has learned he was carrying $10,000 cash and his brother's ID. Investigators who were tracking him electronically and tapping his phones worried he was about to run to Mexico.
It was necessary, we believed, to take him into custody at that time.
Arresting him hours before completion of DNA analysis establishing the two bodies found Sunday and Monday in San Francisco Bay were those of Laci Peterson and her unborn son. Today, some of Peterson's family and friends visited with him in jail after he spent the night sleeping and making some phone calls.
He's rather calm and he seems
just a bit uneasy, perhaps maybe a little scared.
The district attorney says Peterson will likely be arraigned Monday or Tuesday on 2 counts of homicide, leaving open the possibility he will seek the death penalty. For Lacey's family and friends, finally, a feeling of resolution.
It's affected everybody, even if you knew of the family, if you didn't know of the family, if you just moved into the area. It's affected everybody big time.
Resolution after nearly 4 months of uncertainty. James Hattori, NBC News, Modesto, California.
In a moment, the president turns his attention to the economy. President Bush is spending this Easter weekend at his ranch in Crawford, Texas, no doubt satisfied about accomplishing what his father didn't, removing Saddam Hussein from power. But now the president is turning his attention to the economy to help him accomplish something else his father didn't, winning a second term. NBC's Rosalind Jordan is traveling with the president in Crawford, Texas. Good evening, Rosalind.
Good evening, John. The White House says the president made the economy one of his top 2 priorities of the entire year. But with the war practically over, it's clear Mr. Bush is trying to capitalize on people's strong positive feelings about his job performance. At a factory in St. Louis where F-18 fighter jets are built, President Bush talked this week about the war and about his next campaign to improve the struggling economy.
Too many of our fellow Americans are looking for work. And that bothers me.
With unemployment hovering just under 6% and the economy projected to grow barely this year, if at all, the president is trying to avoid the same mistake his father made after the first Gulf War.
The economy is in trouble, and George Bush recognizes that any surge in support that he gets from the war isn't going to translate over. He has to show he's on top of the domestic agenda, and as soon as he can do that, the better it'll be for him.
The president's approval rating is now at 72%, and he's crisscrossing the country to pitch his stimulus plan to what he hopes is a receptive audience. Now that the war is over, more Americans think it's time for the president and Congress to turn their attention back to domestic issues. 41% say the economy should be the top priority, while 29% say defense and the war on terror should be number 1. But one former Democratic Party official says the president's emphasis on a $550 billion tax cut package could backfire come election time next year.
The American people don't want to see money spent for wealthy people on tax cuts. They want to see money spent on schools, on health care, and helping states and local communities facing drowning deficits.
And, John, the president is planning to travel next week to some unnamed city to talk both about the last days of the war and about his plans to fix the economy. John?
NBC's Rosalind Jordan with the president. Rosalind, thank you. Now, the union representing flight attendants at American Airlines is calling for a new vote on a package of concessions aimed at keeping the airline from going bankrupt. The union says the results of their vote taken earlier this week may have been tainted by revelations that top American officials received a new pension plan while rank-and-file workers were asked to take cuts. American later withdrew the plan. No word on when or if the vote will take place. When we come back, from recruit to Marine, boot camp at Parris Island. The war in Iraq inspired a wave of young Americans to enlist in the military. Many new U.S. Marines, for instance, are just now graduating from basic training. They know they are through the boot camp too late to fight in this war, but certainly in time for the next one. Here's NBC's Carl Quintanilla.
With 12 among them, they are hardly the few, but they are the proud.
We're all ready. We're armed and dangerous.
The family of Justin Marriott, 19 years old and a new Marine today. He hasn't seen his father, Bill, or his mother, Karen, since basic training began.
Couldn't be any prouder.
I miss him. I can't wait to get my hands on him.
Inspired by a war they didn't fight, the 298 men of Company I. Once babies, and still young, most of them during Desert Storm were only 7 years old.
Oh, baby. Congratulations.
Justin's parents say he stands straighter now. His childhood temper has been tempered.
Do you understand? Yes, sir!
Undone by the first night of boot camp, a phone call home,
I love you.
the requisite haircut.
All I remember is just them rushing us around, not really knowing what's going on.
That arrival now seems so long ago, made even more distant by the war, and the memory for these troops of when the news came.
Our series commander came in, told us about it. We were sitting in our squad bay, and he came in and he just said, get on line, keep your mouth shut, and listen, and he told us what had happened.
Some Marines, like Lance Corporal Troy Barney, wish they'd graduated sooner and been part of the war
All the
effort.
stuff you miss out on. It's been almost a goal to get out of here, to go out and be part of the Brotherhood.
But for parents like Bill Marriott, the thought of a son in combat, even one who's a Marine, is still foreign.
I just can't picture Justin going over there, and I see him as he's transformed into a man and a Marine and being in battle.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the newest Marines of our Corps.
Before their 10 days vacation, one final ceremony. The nation's newest Marines. The war may be over, but their military journey is just beginning. Carl Quintanilla, NBC News, Parris Island, South Carolina.
And that is NBC Nightly News for this Saturday. Thanks for watching. I'm Seigenthaler in New York. I'll see you back here again tomorrow night.